This move from Treasury back to the public enterprises, Minister, does it go anywhere to actually solve the struggling airlines' problems?
Well, I think so. I think overall it's a positive move. The airline didn't really belong under the auspices of finance. It was moved there, if you remember, about 3 or 4 years ago, when the then chairman of SAA, Dudu Myeni, was locking horns with Minister Lynn Brown as the Minister of Public Enterprises. And unfortunately, Minister Brown was coming off second best. So they moved the airline under financial control. And also the airline was continuously going back to the fiscus with cap in hand, asking for yet more bailouts. Well, that immediate pressure is now off because the state has approved, or the government has approved, a 20.7 billion rand bailout. So they're not going to continuously be going back to finance. And it makes more sense to put it back under Pravin Gordhan's control. He was responsible for the airline earlier. He understands the airline very well, and it fits better into the portfolio of public enterprises, which is what it is.
It still needs about 21 billion rand just to keep on going over the next 3 years. And then, of course, we had these concerns about it getting an equity partner. Do you see any move on that front?
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of unnecessary hope or false expectation created by the need for an equity partner. That was done in response to a call by AfriForum and Solidarity that the airline sell off a share or privatize entirely. I think it's premature to try and sell off a share because the airline is not a going concern. It's fundamentally insolvent. It's reliant on a state bailout, and there's just no real scope for a private investor to get involved, no another airline specifically. So the airline has to be turned around. They've given themselves 3 years to turn it around before it can significantly look attractive to a foreign investor. And it also needs to be said that there would almost certainly have to be a legislation change as well. Current legislation prohibits foreign owners from owning more than 25% of an airline, like of a local South African airline. I cannot imagine any foreign airline wanting a minority share in an airline that has a historical history of being interfered with by the state.
You say this airline has to be turned around. We have this debate still hanging over our heads here about whether or not this airline should just be done away with because it has such a huge pull and negative effect on the fiscus. You'll tell me otherwise, Guy.
Well, no, I think that if we'd known 20 years ago that the airline was going to cost the country so much money, then obviously it should have been closed down at that particular stage. But there is a case to be made for state ownership of an airline. A lot of the more successful airlines in the world and in Africa, specifically Ethiopian Airlines, are successfully state-owned. Singapore Airlines, they do perform a useful function in terms of providing transport infrastructure, but you need really, really good management. This is a very capital-intensive industry with very low margins, and if there's just absolutely no room for any incompetence or any developmental agenda or any flag-flying agenda or anything else, and I think that hopefully this time around the new board and chief executive of SAA understands that. But you know, this is the 10th turnaround we're being asked to fund, if not more. And this is a huge bet that we've been asked to take. This is, as you said, a 21 billion rand bet. So it should probably ideally be left to the private sector.
Final question. Would Pravin Gordhan, the Minister of Public Enterprises, do anything a bit more specific now that this airline falls under the control of his ministry?
No, I don't anticipate any changes in government policy towards the airline. They have had on the table for quite some time a desire to integrate the 3 state-owned airlines, that is SAA, its subsidiary Mango, and its sister airline, SA Express. That may just move it a little bit further ahead, but probably more because SA Express is now a terminal case. It's only got 2 aircraft flying. It's lost most of its routes to its competitors. And so the only way it can be saved is probably to roll it up into SAA. But beyond that, I don't see a policy change coming through the change to public enterprises.